look down upon Phil, the puppet master. Hi, I'm Brittney Gallagher. I'm a science and tech journalist who's puppet mastering.
Hi, I'm Phil Libin, and I have a beard now, but in a few seconds or minutes, or depending how this magic of video editing goes, I won't.
And Phil is the founder and CEO of All Turtles and And we're joined together right now in for Web, playing around. One of my favorite rooms is, of course, Monkey Onsen, because
The monkey onsen,
it is,
yes.
yeah, just lay on the head of the very sweet monkey. Phil and I are working together on a video podcast called
Degrees of Freedom, making the out-of-office world.
In this series, we dive into the evolving ecosystem that is distributed or the out-of-office world. We're seeing a transformation in where and how many of us do our jobs, catalyzed by the COVID-19 pandemic, which brought many of us, and in most cases not ideally, out of the office to working from home. I kind of went to something a little bit like this here, although I wish I was on the Starship Enterprise, but unfortunately I wasn't. But I definitely had a spot crossing the keyboard in Zoom calls. Phil, what was your setup like once you went to working from home?
Well, we were all in an office in San Francisco when the pandemic hit, and then we all went home, and it sucked for like weeks. I don't know, maybe months. But then we kind of leaned into it. We said, well, look, let's make the best of this. Let's figure out what stuff could be better about this world than ever before. And so we made a bunch of changes and invented some products, and it actually turned out to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, like this product. Since the start of the pandemic, there's been story after story about where employees stand, and many who can want to continue to work distributedly. We refer to these people as knowledge workers. Phil, could you define for us what a knowledge worker is?
A knowledge worker is someone that uses the word distributively, like indubitably. It's most of us. It's engineers and designers and lawyers and tax accountants and the kinds of people whose contribution to their work is measured by what's in their head and what they can get out of their head, as opposed to how many heavy things they can move. Knowledge work, I think by some estimates, there's about 1.5 billion of those people worldwide. Those numbers kind of vary, but whatever it is, it's growing quickly. And I think one thing that a lot of knowledge workers have in common is most of us can do our job from anywhere if we adopt the right kinds of tools and processes.
Right. Speaking of that, Phil, you're in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I'm in Los Angeles, and we're synchronous right now. We're operating in the same time, but not in the same space. I know there's a space-time joke in here somewhere. But Phil, you've created a communication hierarchy for this out-of-office world. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we call this the communications hierarchy. The basic idea is it's a pyramid, and all the way at the very top is when you're live and in person with other people. And the idea is when you're up here, when you're at the top of this pyramid, you're actually in the same physical space with other people. It's really scarce. This is really important. This is really expensive. This is really hard to scale. It's hard to make more of. And so whenever you're actually in the same physical space at the same time with other people, it's really precious. You got to make the most of it. You shouldn't waste precious in-person time showing each other slides, having meetings. There should be food involved. You should be building relationships. You should be doing things that really strengthen your relationships as humans that you can only do in person. A lot of the other time, you could be in this middle layer over here. That's kind of what the two of us are doing right now, which is we're doing live video. And this is not quite as precious as as upstairs, as physically in the same place, because you don't have to travel. It can be different places, but it's still pretty scarce because we have to do it at the same time. And the more of us there are hard enough with 2 people, but if there was 5 or 10, it gets exponentially more difficult to get everyone to pay attention and to be available at the same time. So when you're in this layer, this video conferencing, live video level, you should only do things that you have to be there at the same time to do, which is to have conversations. You should be talking. You should be one person moves their mouth and talks and other people listen, and then you take turns every few seconds. And if you're doing anything other than that, if one person is talking for many minutes at a time and no one else is saying anything, that's not a conversation. That's a lecture or an update, and it shouldn't be here. It should be down here. It should be in this recorded video, asynchronous level. And that's the basic idea. So the basic idea is we can take interactions that we used to all cram up here, live and in person, like board meetings, college classes, all hands meetings, stand-up updates, and we spread them out on this pyramid. We do maybe 5% at the top, live and in person. We do about, I don't know, 15% in the middle, interactive live video. And then we do about 80% at the bottom, which is a pre-recorded, high quality, engaging, asynchronous content. And when you do that, lots of things just become better than they ever were.
Over the course of the series, Phil interviews the business leaders and investors forging this new world, and I'll be interviewing the knowledge workers shaping it. We hope to offer insights into what we think is a worldwide redistribution of opportunity.
Yeah, we've always thought that talent is evenly distributed throughout the world, but opportunity never was. And by giving millions of people the ability to work where they can have the best impact and live where they can have the best life, we think we can make a fairer world with better outcomes for many millions of people. And the key is distributed work. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what distributed work is, what it looks like, and how some people have been able to escape the confines of the office to make the most out of this new life.
I joined Phil in Bentonville for some of that valuable in-person time to talk about this and more, because being distributed doesn't mean we're never in person. So we're talking about distributed work, and I would love to know what your definition is and how you define distributed work.
Well, I think I was always really skeptical. I would say borderline hostile. I would say fully hostile to the concept of, working from home, people working remotely. I always thought, we need to have a strong office culture, and that means having a strong office. That means seeing people in person. Turns out I was wrong about all that stuff. So I think distributed work, and really the distributed world that we're trying to build right now, is one where people just have a lot more freedom to decide when they work and where they work and how they live and where they live. It's really being able to decide to work where you can have the best job and to live where you can have the best life, and to do that, make those two decisions independently of each other.
So, when we talk about distributed work, we don't necessarily mean like fully working from home, right? You're not, what a lot of people struggled with during the pandemic, and it's depending on where you were, both geographically and socioeconomically, you had to all of a sudden work from home. And now your house, your kitchen becomes your office. Your kids are home, and you're your partner, and it's difficult. So when we talk about distributed work, what you're doing at like, how does it work?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of us make is we conflate distributed work and distributed life with what happened during the beginning of the pandemic. And it's not the same thing. I think so many of us have, basically PTSD from the first few months or the first year or whatever of COVID, where you were forced to be in your apartment, not seeing any other humans other than whoever happened to already be living there, in a tiny place for a lot of people, with screaming children and like no setup. But that's not out of office work. That's like an emergency response where we weren't prepared, and we all had to like go and work from home. And that was terrible. I think it was terrible for me and for a lot of people. But now we've had 2 years. Like, that's not what distributed is right now. Like, I don't work from home that much. I do, like, I work from home maybe a quarter of the time, but I work from here. I work from Crystal Bridges. I work from coffee shops. I walk around a lot. I choose where I want to work depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. So if I want to have some creative thoughts, like, I'll do it walking around the museum, either by myself or with a couple of people in the team when they come over. That turns out that's working for the museum is much better for creative work than like sitting in an office in a conference room. If I just want to be alone quietly, there's plenty of places, for that. So like, I choose during the day a few different environments of where I want to be. And sometimes it's home and sometimes it's not. And it's far better. Obviously, it's not only better than working out of my apartment, it's far better than working out of an office, because the office was always like the lowest common denominator. Like, it was never ideal for anything. It was just like, it's just where you were.
You got excited if there was a snake plant in the room. You're like, oh, there's some life in here. It's not.
Or a snake.
You got real excited. Or when a bird flew into the conference window.
But now, like, I could work from wherever. And anyone can in companies like this, right? So if your dream was to, work for a few decades and then retire so that you can like live on the beach and surf. Well, why wait a few decades? Why not do it now? Go live on a beach while you have your job. It's fine. In fact, that sort of challenges the whole concept of like, well, let's struggle and sacrifice when you're young. That doesn't make sense. Just do it now. And you don't have to give up your job if you have the right kind of job, the job that does this. So like, it isn't about work. Like, yes, a lot of us had very difficult environments for a few months after COVID because we weren't prepared for it. But you can prepare. You can really design the environment or the environments to be ideal. But I do still think that in a lot of people's minds, like distributed work means
remote work from home. Yeah.
Remote work from home, and it's that uncertainty because there's still a lot of companies who are screwing around with employees, being like, well, maybe we'll go back to the office 3 days a week, and maybe we'll do it starting in November. That's inhumane.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that to people? Like you can't make plans. You can't decide where you want to live. One of the things that I think we did right. Few things that I think we really did right in our company was pretty early on. I think by May of 2020, we just told people like, we will not call you back to the office. Just, this is the way it's going to be. Live where you want to live. We're not going to reduce your salaries. Just because I wanted to give people that confidence that at least in something they had some certainty. Now there was no promise the company was going to survive. We're glad that we did, but like at least people didn't have to like for years now think about, well, should I change how my kids are in school? Like, what does all this mean? Like, it was at least something. So, yeah, I think we all need to get over that shock that we had during the pandemic, and like we learned the wrong lessons from that. We can do much better now.
So you were in San Francisco and not being in a central office. You've left San Francisco and we're now in Bentonville, Arkansas. Can you talk a little bit about that move and what that transition was for you?
Well, yeah, I was in the Bay Area for 15, 16 years, San Francisco and a few other places around there. Basically moved there in 2007 for Evernote. I never really thought before, where should I live? I never asked that question of myself because work was always the most important thing for me. And so I would live where the job was. So the only question was, where should I work? Where was the best place to work? And San Francisco and the Bay Area was the best place for tech startups. And so that's where I was. And then when the pandemic started and we got rid of the office, we told everyone we're being fully distributed, work wherever we want. Let's just lean into it. And for the first time in my life, it was like, well, I had the thought, where do I want to live? Because I could work from anywhere. And I didn't know. So we thought, well, let's try a few different places. So our plan was to just drive around the country, go to a few places, see what we liked, spend a few months in each place. Came here first because my partner's brother-in-law got a job at, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, Walmart.
It sounds familiar.
I
have to
think
look
you
it
say
up.
Walmart. Yeah. I think it's a company around here. And so he came here and they said, yeah, it's nice and peaceful here. Come hang out for a few months. So we did. We got an Airbnb. And we really liked it. We thought we'd stay for 2 months. And now we've been here for over a year and we're building a house. And I think we're here for whatever permanent means in this world.
Before having come to Bentonville, I had a fair amount of preconceived notions, as someone from Los Angeles does. And it actually feels very much different than small town America, than a lot of small town America. It has a lot of things that particularly appeal to someone like me. So like a big city girl, like from Los Angeles, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Like, look at this amazing art museum. Like, there's actually incredible art here. It's like, blows my mind. There's a mountain bike shop and a coffee shop and a bar all together. But this doesn't feel so much like when people say Silicon Valley to Main Street, like this doesn't feel like Main Street to me.
I think if you would have come to Bentonville 3 years ago, I think you would have thought it was exceptional. Meaning, it's pretty great, but it exists because of a set of circumstances that you really couldn't reproduce. Like this is really here, and it's because of Walmart, it's because of a few other large employers, and it's because of several decades of very, very concentrated philanthropy with a central plan by the Walton family and others. And it's a great place if you want the sorts of things that are here, but it's exceptional, meaning it's not going to exist anywhere else. But I think now it's actually not so much exceptional as potentially a roadmap for small city life in the U.S. I think as more and more distributed workers start coming to more and more smaller cities, finding places because they're good places to live or great places to live, because it doesn't matter where you live anymore. You can work anywhere if you have the right kind of knowledge job. Then the revenue base, the local economy can become like this in many, many places. You don't necessarily need decades of multi-billion-dollar, planned philanthropy to make something really great. I think Bentonville and places like this are going from being literally exceptional to being maybe a blueprint for a relatively hopeful vision for small-town U.S. over the next decade. How many people alive in the world do you think there were that could choose where they wanted to live and what kind of lifestyle they wanted to have, totally independently of how they were working? Probably a few 100,000 worldwide.
Not very many.
Basically, a few 100,000 rich people worldwide that could be wherever they wanted, live wherever they wanted to live, and they didn't have to think about work, right? A couple of 100,000. Now, I think 3 years later, 2 years later, that's a couple of 100 million, because now lots of people in knowledge industries can make that decision. So it's still not everyone, not nearly everyone. And my guess is that in 10 years, it's going to go up from a couple of 100 million to probably 2 billion people worldwide. 10 years from now, we probably have a third of the population, roughly, of the planet be able to live and work independently of each other. And that's such a profound change.
Yeah. It's the biggest change for the office in 100 years.
And of those 2 billion people, not all of them are going to come to Bentonville. Hopefully,
I'm sure Bentonville hopes not.
Hopefully none of them, or very few. But they're all gonna come somewhere, and they're gonna make different decisions about how they want to think about it, and that decision is gonna change the world. It's gonna change every aspect of the world. Yeah. This distributed out of office world is much more about an integration of life and work, like correctly done.
Yeah.
So we don't need to escape it nearly as much as maybe we needed to escape the previous one.
Iteration, yeah.
Like it's fine. There's a great potential to make life and work fine for a great many people. I think more than there's ever been, which is like, that seems like a worthwhile task for the next generation or two.
We filmed in Bentonville, Arkansas, and like many other cities across America, it's seen an influx of new residents. The median list price for a home was $399,000 in April 2019. And in March 2022, it's $780,000, and it continues to climb. Phil's an outsider coming in, but how do the locals feel about Bentonville's transformation? We talked to our camera crew, Sam and Chetley, both longtime residents of Bentonville, about their experiences and how Bentonville is changing.
Sam McDonald, Bentonville, Arkansas. I am a video content creator, and I've been doing it for about 15 years now.
I am Chetley Breedlove, a native here to Bentonville, Arkansas.
So how do you feel as someone whose job isn't distributed, right? You can't, I guess maybe some of the stuff you do from home, and you've been doing from home for a while, like kind of dealing with contracts or people calling you, and but your job isn't really going to change because, or maybe it is, as more and more people become distributed. Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's interesting because as COVID hit, virtualization of events happened overnight. And a lot of people who were in position to be able to say, listen, let's have a Zoom meeting with 15 people and put them into a conference room together, but virtually, and then distribute that meeting out to a giant group of people who would have been 1,500 people who all flew into Dallas to be there for it. Well, now we just record it, put it into a little hour-and-a-half segment like an NBC special and kick it out back to them. That happened very quickly, so there was a virtualization aspect to what we do in our industry. But that still doesn't replace the fact that you're going to have interviews like this where you have lights and cameras and stands and physical people running things like that.
I don't really understand why a lot of people are in the office. I think being home and working from home is much more productive, and people are happy and do what they want to do. And so I see why people like doing that now, and I totally agree. It's a great thing. For us, I'm glad we still get to go out and, because I'm not someone who could stay at home and just be a homebody, but I love going out and meeting new people and doing stuff like this and seeing new places. I'm different than a lot of that, but I never understood why companies spend so much money for having everyone at the work.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand that.
It is a little bitter that I'm like, well, okay, everybody else just gets to wear shorts all the time, and I still have to show up to work. But I still really enjoy what I do. I love my job. I don't think there's a lot of part of me that's very bitter about having to come in and find lenses and find cameras, because I have a very big passion for that. And I think if you're the type of person who has extreme passion for their job, if you're a landscaper and you love landscaping, I don't think you're going to mind that you still have to pick up a rake and go do your job.
Have you noticed, like, since the pandemic started, like a great influx of different types of people from bigger cities coming?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I also have my video production company here. And so in the last 4 years, we've seen just an explosion of work, and especially movies are heading here from Los Angeles. We are shooting one right now, a TV show.
Are you happy with having more people come here? Like, how do you feel?
It's a love-hate relationship, I think. The fact that we can be, back in the country in less time is okay. But, I used to live right down the street down here, and then my house was bought out and expanded into a bigger street. And
so did the government buy it out? Or
the city did.
The city
did.
did.
So the city's been buying up properties all over the place, expanding, because the road systems are not ready to handle this many people.
Yeah.
And so they've been expanding, and so tearing down a lot of houses. And I had friends all the way around here, and they've sold their houses for crazy, crazy amounts of money because of that. So it's one good thing about it is you're getting paid for the property, but another, it's just I'm never going to be able to live in downtown Bentonville again. So it's frustrating, but yeah.
Just because you couldn't afford it now? Is that
I don't know if I would want to pay for something that expensive.
Yeah, and especially lately, the last 5 years, you see the market values in the area go up. My house has gained 25% in value in the last 3 years alone, which is nice.
Yeah.
It also makes it tough if I'm like, oh man, I'd really like to live over on the other side of Rogers, close to my family. Well, good luck. That's an $800,000 home. That last decade would have been $120,000. The property prices out here are astronomically crazy.
That was Sam and Chetley, both longtime residents of Bentonville, Arkansas, which is seeing a large influx of people who can work distributedly. And Bentonville, of course, isn't the only city experiencing this. Other small cities and towns across the U.S. and even the world are grappling with an influx of new residents. A recent Upwork study found that 2.4%, or about 5 million Americans, have already moved because they can work distributedly. And that number is only expected to increase. And many companies are becoming location agnostic as a result. In 2020, Reddit abolished the geographic pay zones for its U.S. employees. So everyone is paid a high-cost salary like you live in New York or San Francisco. And Phil, does do something similar?
Yeah, we think, well, hang on, this is pointlessly distracting. All right, there you go. We think that you should be paid based on your contributions to the company, not on where you live. So we pay people without consideration of where they are.
Yeah, and throughout the series, we'll explore this and many other topics like...
I got to talk with Roel of Bata at Sequoia about crucible moments that really shape companies and really moments that shape the world.
And Phil also interviewed how to cultivate a sense of trust and belonging in a distributed world with Asana's Joanna Miller.
Got a chance to talk with Tammy Sun, the founder and CEO of Care Fertility, about hiring people without ever having met them in a distributed way, and what companies can do to keep employees happy.
All that and so much more. The Office was the lowest common denominator, and in this series, we'll delve into how this redistribution of opportunity is starting to reshape the world.
And we think talent's always been globally distributed, but opportunity hasn't been. And by letting people separate where they live from where they work, we think we can make the whole world a lot fairer and a lot better for many millions of people. It's a worthwhile thing to do, and we'll talk about how we can go about doing it.
All right. That's it for this episode of Degrees of Freedom, Making the Out of Office World. Until next time, I'm Brittney Gallagher.
And I'm Phil Libin.